Are you a hardworking dad, juggling family responsibilities while dreaming of building wealth through real estate? Welcome to the Invested Fathers Podcast, where we explore how to balance investing and fatherhood. I'm your host, Kenny Johnson, founder of East West Capital. Over the past 5 years, I've been buying real estate to free up my time and secure my family's future. Now I'm here to help you do the same. Join me as we navigate the real estate world together, building wealth and strengthening our families. As my grandma always said, East West, home's best. As fathers, we're always leading in some way, right? Our kids, our spouses, they're watching us, and they're watching how we interact with people, how we talk with them, how we treat them. Today's episode is going to be centered around interactions with people that I've had within the last 2 to 3 weeks. In each of these stories that I'm going to share, and I have 7, there will be a mix of relationship closenesses. Some interactions with people that I know very well, and some interactions are with strangers or acquaintances. So my thought here is knowing how I am thinking and the mindset that I have in each of these stories is one way that you, my listeners, can connect with me better, while also aiming to encourage, inspire, or deepen the relationships that you all currently have in your own busy world. I'll be using made-up names for everyone for privacy's sake. So let's just jump right in with story 1. Story 1 is about Deb. When was the last time you guys cried? Did I just go there? Yes, I did. And when I say cry, I don't mean there's like a hint of moisture in your eye where like you haven't blinked in a while and you're just trying to like get that one tear to come out. I'm talking about there's no holding back the floodgates, weeping. You have a nasty, ugly face, blotchy, and you are just bawling. This is a very rare occurrence for me, but it did happen recently, and it was at a memorial where I went to a good friend's memorial service. The husband died very unexpectedly, and the whole goal with Deb was for me to show up. She's much closer to my wife, and we have kids that go to the same school, and we see her on Sundays, and this lady is just one of the brightest, cheeriest, sunniest personalities who's constantly just making everyone else around her happy. And witnessing someone like that so closed off and sad really moved me. The big takeaway for me on this one was we need to show up for people. And obviously when someone's hurting, what better way to love them than to be there for them at different events? The next story that I want to talk about is about Rita. And this is about praying with somebody. Rita is a neighbor of a house that I actually own. And I was going by this house to kind of check on some things. And Rita is someone that I've just gotten to know a little bit here and there. Every time I check on the house, I see if their car's there. Rita actually does have a terminal illness, cancer. So I try to smile with her and tell her about my son and what I'm working on. And she's big into plants. And she also loves her dog. And we're talking about her dog. But something that happened recently with her was, as we were talking about our souls and death, I felt led to say, hey, I would love to pray with you. And she said, that would be fantastic. And we prayed. And afterwards, she was just beaming and said, thank you so much for doing that. And that was just an encouragement for her. The next story I want to share is with Jen. And this is a librarian that I see pretty much every day because I'm in the library a lot, recording these things where I'm recording this right now. The takeaway for me on this interaction was just asking people how they're doing. And I know that is super cliche in regards to like, oh, how you doing? Good, all right, see ya. But there's certain ways I feel like you can ask somebody how they're doing that you're not like walking away as you say it, or you kind of slow down how you say it, and you're almost like looking at them like, so how are you doing? Like, what's going on in your world? Where this lady opened up, told me she had a lot of things going on with her kids and police and drugs and all sorts of things. And she was ready to, share these things. And afterwards, she basically was like, you guys are like one of my favorite groups that come in here. I mean, yeah, there's probably some just closeness and familiarity in seeing us so often, but also just trying to be intentional with thinking about people and not just being on the rush to go to the next thing that we have planned. Story 4 is about Joe. Joe is at my son's karate class. He is one of the main guys there. And Joe wrote a book, an autobiography, and I wanted to get closer with him and give him some encouragement. I bought the book. It was like $20 and I read it, which took maybe like 4 hours. It wasn't that big. It's basically how he started his karate business and some of his values and entrepreneurial type of stuff. I made sure that when I saw him, I said, "Hey, I read your book and I really liked it." He's like, "Oh yeah." And we started joking about certain things. And he went on to ask like, "Hey, would you write a review for this?" And I was like, "Absolutely." I wrote one and he just was like, "Man, I am so humbled. Thank you so much for doing this. Such high praise. I want to give God the glory for everything." We got closer from that situation and it only took a few hours to do that. And obviously $20. But I feel much closer to him, obviously, than before. The next story is about Kristen. Kristen is in a mastermind capital raising group, real estate stuff. And they have these assigned coaches that are accountability coaches that ask you, how are you doing with your goals? They're just good at listen to where you're at. One of the things that I've done is I've spent a few minutes every time saying, "Well, how are you doing? And like, what are some of the things you're working on?" And this specific person was like, "No one has ever asked me that before on all these calls." She's been just an awesome help to me. And I've in turn just simply asked, "Well, what's going on in your world?" And that's been a huge encouragement to her. Story 6 is about a guy named Ken. And Ken is someone that I've invited to join me in my men's small group. I'm involved in a Bible study group with like 6 or 7 other guys. He's new to my church. I thought, what's one way that I could connect deep with this guy? And one of the ways I just said, "Hey, if you're not involved in a certain group right now, come join us." And he's like, "Oh, you sure? Like, I don't want to bother anybody. And I don't know if I'm going to be doing this very long," or, just kind of this uncertain type of response. And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. Like, we'd love to have you." And he's been going for the last few months. The takeaway for this guy was, what are some things that you're already doing that you could simply just bring someone along with you? Another way I've, heard this is, "Hey, a group of friends and I are going out to this thing. Like, would you want to join us?" Could be going out to eat or see a movie or play soccer. And just finding someone to include in that can sometimes make a huge difference. So the last story, number 7, is about Momo. Just kidding. His real name is Moses. It's my son. And we took a walk around the neighborhood the other day, and I realized we have many interactions throughout the day, and there are many questions and stories, mainly about Donkey Kong or some Super Nintendo game, or Marvel, or animals. He is 7. I wanted to have a time, though, that we could really have some intentional conversation about how he's doing and that I care about him. And we're working right now on caring for others. And, when we go into conversation with people like grandma, grandpa, or whoever, it might be nice to, share some things that you're interested in, especially if they ask you, but also return that question with, how are you doing? And what are some things that you like? Or try to find something that gets them excited talking and being a good listener. I don't know what age your kids are, but I'm sure this conversation just looks different at different ages. 7-year-olds to 13-year-olds to 20 or 30 or 40-year-olds. But really trying to ensure that my son knows, like, I am your audience and like, I want to talk with you and I want to listen to what you have to say. And I also want to help you if I can. It was a 10-minute walk. It wasn't that long, but I feel like those kind of interactions are just incredible for our relationship, that he knows that I'm there for him. All right. So that was it. We talked about 7 situations that weren't too out of the blue around missional living. These are things that potentially are happening with all of you guys, with people from church, neighbors, people that you're seeing, cashiers, or I don't know if librarians per se, or your kids. But I want to ask, are you too busy for doing this stuff? I'm confident that my listeners are helping people today, and they're doing it all the time with no recognition or return. And for that, I want to give my appreciation for you here. If there are certain people that came to mind during these stories where you thought, "Man, I feel like I'm ready to go just a little bit deeper with this connection," Or maybe you're asking yourself, how can I start building more intentional, positive impacts with more people? Then I hope this episode helps push you to that next conversation. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Invested Fathers podcast. If you like this episode, we would love for you to click subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate all of your hard work as a father and look forward to our next episode together.